Thank you everyone for joining us. Hope you're having a great afternoon. I'm Sally from Mable and I'm very excited to have Emma here from YOUtax with me. Today we're going to be talking through sole trader deductions. What can I claim? But before we get started, next slide please, we'll just have an acknowledgement of country. So we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and we extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. So Emma is here from YOUtax and it's a very busy time for her, tax time. So thank you for making a bit of extra time and I'll let her get underway. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I want to welcome everybody onto the webinar. We've got it's still rising numbers coming through today. I just want to check we have a chat feature here that we would love, that we've got people testing, which is wonderful. Just making sure you can see and hear me and see the slides clearly. I also want to bring your attention to a link to a workbook that we have that you can follow along with the webinar and make some notes. So if you do have a PDF editor on your computer, feel free. Otherwise, you will have to print it. And if you wait till after the webinar, you still have access to be able to print it. It will be attached to the recording that will be sent out to you tomorrow as well. So welcome everyone. I'm sure I'm here from all over the country. First, I want to put our disclaimer on that, Wes. We are talking about tax deductions for independent support workers who are trading under an ABN. I just want to let you know that the purpose of this webinar is to improve your financial well-being through education. The information provided in the webinar is based on current legislation, however, can be general in nature. Ensure you consider these topics in relation to your personal and family circumstances and seek qualified advice when necessary. Please note, YOUtax is a tax agent service and we cannot provide financial planning advice under our license. However, we can discuss things around super legislation, which is under our license to have a chat about. The link has an error. Okay, I'll get the girls to send a new link through to you while I begin the webinar. So first, what we're going to learn today is I'm just going to show you a couple of things on the Mable platform that's important to tax time. We're going to look at some common support worker claims, what you can and can't claim. I believe we're going to be disappointing a few people on the webinar today. I've got a couple of valid questions that have come through that we're going to discuss in this session. But the bulk of our webinar is going to be spent on motor vehicle expense methods, the logbook versus the cents per kilometre. And we're going to also touch on when you're charging travel kilometres to clients and how this is reported for you for tax purposes. So I'll jump in because we do have a lot of information today. So you probably recognise this screenshot here. This is a screenshot of your Mable platform. I just want to draw attention to the area that says business income. It's in there that you're going to be finding your annual Mable statement. So when you're looking to do your tax return or coming to us to do your tax return, we need the annual Mable statement. We had a wonderful client last week who sent us over 300 invoices. Bless his little heart. Please don't send us 300 invoices. You have an annual summary of your of all of your income for the year that is prepared by Mable. And please also note, this Mable statement is your net income less the Mable fees and less the Mable fees on travel. So your travel income and your support work income is in this annual statement. And so you do not need to account for the Mable fees when reporting your income because it's already netted off in the statement. So just be aware of that. That's a common mistake we find. The next area that I want to show is the area with exports where you can export your support hours. I'm going to do a little demo coming up about your support hours in a way for people who have not tracked any motor vehicle kilometres. So it's kind of a little tool. If you haven't done a logbook or haven't tracked your kilometres, I'll do a little demo for you there. Now, moving on, you are all here as an ABN support worker. So because you're an independent support worker, you are responsible for the reporting of your income to the ATO. If you've come from employment, you'll be used to the fact that your employer reports your income. However, you are responsible for reporting of your income. If you end up with a bill of over $1,000 of tax payable in the year, the ATO automatically enters you into a quarterly installment program, a PAYG installment program, where they ask you to report and pay the tax on the income that you've earned in the previous 3 months each quarter of the year. Now, the thing with the ATO is it works on historical data. So let's say you were with Mable last year and you've in 2024 and you lodged your 2024 tax return. You might be seeing letters coming through now from the ATO saying, we expect you to pay this amount quarterly. This gives everyone a big shock and going, oh my God, I've paid my tax, what's going on? The ATO is expecting that for businesses, you pay a portion of your tax throughout the year. And that is what a quarterly reporting or installment activity statement. There's many names. Could be a PAYG installment, quarterly installment activity statement, but it is for you to pay tax throughout the year. So I know that there is a tax product out there where they can put that tax aside into a bank account. So every quarter when you get that statement, then you can go, okay, well, I've got this money sitting in my super sync or my tax sync account. I'm going to pay the ATO. Now, not everybody is the same in the circumstances. If you have not lodged your Mable, ABN income already, and the ATO doesn't know that you owe it tax, it's not going to know it until you lodge your first tax return. Okay, so for 2025, if this is your first business tax return, if this is your first year that you have to pay tax, the ATO won't be aware of this until you lodge your 2025 tax return. Okay, so quarterly installments can be very confusing, but it means that you can pay a percentage of your tax, and please reach out and get some support if you need. Now, Mable does have a requirement to report your income. So in your annual reporting, Mable has a requirement to report that to the ATO. That's the sharing economy reporting regime. And but this is not like an employer who reports single touch payroll and they report it to the ATO. This is actually just a guide that says, I'm reporting ABN income. You may have private clients, you may have other clients that you may have private clients that you need to make sure that you are reporting personally. However, this is just an audit trail or a bit of a checking guide for the ATO that says, well, you have Mable reported income. You haven't done your tax return yet. Please make sure you report your income in your tax return. So this is under the sharing economy reporting regime. You've got, people like Airbnb, Uber Eats and Uber drivers. They all have to report, and Mable falls under that platform as well. Now, excellent. So another thing that we're looking at with You Are a Business. So you'll have your income that you are provided on your Mable statement, and then you have expenses that you do need to deduct to get your net income. Now, the net income is what you pay tax on, okay? And that is the income that we report at the end of the year. And so this is the part where we get to talk about what are those expenses that you can claim so that you can reduce that income and to pay less tax. Now, first, I want to talk about the 3 golden rules on what the ATO expects is an expense for what you can claim. So an expense for the ATO, whether it's a employee deduction or an ABN sole trader business expense, it must be an expense incurred while earning assessable income, meaning it was an expense that was necessary for you to perform your job and earn the income that you are earning. And as a business, any expenses in relation to setting up or reporting of your business income, okay? In both cases, whether you're an employee or whether you are an ABN business holder, you must apportion any expenses that have a personal component to work use only. You must have paid for it yourself. That means it wasn't reimbursed by a client. So even if you've got the receipt and the client's, reimbursed you for an expense, it is something that you can't claim. You also must have a record to prove it. So having receipts and logs is very important, especially that you are an ABN sole trader, so you are kept to a higher standard. So there are great little tools around. There's the ATO app, where you can take photos of receipts and store them. Or if you have your own, there are lots of bookkeeping apps, but for someone who is a Mable support worker, unless you are earning over 80, 90,000 and having to report GST, I wouldn't go in buying expensive apps. However, tracking your income, you've got that all within the Mable platform, but keeping receipts of your expenses is very important, especially if using the logbook method for motor vehicle. Okay, now this is some common support worker claims, and this is where we're going to get most of the questions. Now, when you're a Mable independent support worker and you make personal super contributions, they are something that you claim in your tax return at the end of the year. It's not in a business schedule, but your advisor will know where to claim your super contributions. You need to make sure that you complete a notice of intent to claim and send it to the ATO, send it to your private, let me get that right. You need to complete a notice of intent to claim and send it to your superannuation fund before you lodge your tax return, making sure that there is a data matching process that goes between claiming superannuation deductions with the super fund, and the ATO will data match that information for you. We did a webinar on superannuation just on the 29th of May, I believe. So if you want to go back and have any questions around superannuation, there was a very detailed webinar on that one in May for you. Now, some other things is I've already mentioned that the admin fees that Mable charge are already netted off. Okay, so you do not need to add the Mable fees, admin fees, as an expense item when you're reporting Mable income. So if you have your annual summary, you then cannot, and you take the total from your annual summary, you cannot deduct the admin fees again because they are already accounted for. If, say, you did your own private advertising for clients, then that is a business expense. Anything to do with your tax accounting or bookkeeping fees, including any apps like driver's note or anything like that, they are a business expense that you can claim. So we've just got the question here that's come through. Can you claim your Mable fees? The answer is no, because when you report your income, the Mable fees are already accounted for. So what you would have to do is, if you were going to do it, you would then have to gross up the income and then deduct the Mable fees. So in this case, it's already done for you. If you had to buy any client resources for support and disability aids for any of your clients, they are deductible for any expenses there. Just remember, when you're looking at spending money on buying these disability aids, that you're going to get, use it across multiple clients, because remembering that most likely you're going to be in around that 30% tax bracket with 2% Medicare. So for every $100 you earn, you're only getting a tax benefit of $32. So having that understanding when you're spending money around tax deductibility and understanding what your claim may be. So we've got a few questions coming in about motor vehicle and coffee and cake. They are coming up. We are definitely covering all of those important questions. And yes, can you claim super as a tax deduction? You can, but I recommend you speaking to your advisor. If your income is above 45,000 or 55,000, I definitely recommend your superannuation contributions being deducted. If your income is below 45,000, you might want to look at other options and making non-concessional contributions. You might be eligible for the government co-contribution, And all of that can be looked at in the webinar that we did in May. Insurance, if you have any public liability insurance for what you pay for, if you had any private clients, whereas Mable has some insurance covered within there when you're having clients under the Mable program. If you have any income protection insurance that is outside of your super, so this is just going back to what those 3 important things are when claiming a deduction. Is it in relation to your income? So anything, the ATO is only interested in taxing what you earn, whether it be interest, business, employee, they are interested in taxing income that you earn. So if you have an income protection policy, therefore that is claimable as long as it's outside of super, because in superannuation, it is already in a tax incentive environment. So that's why income protection is something. If it was life or, TPD or trauma, no, because they're protecting you personally. They're not protecting your income. Any memberships, registrations for nursing, any police checks that you need to do, any first aid that you need to do, they are all 100% deductible for your business. Any protective equipment, whether you purchase gloves, masks, tissues, sanitizers, sunscreen, they are all deductible. However, if you go and get a flu shot or a COVID shot, in the eyes of the ATO, they are treated as personal. So when you're getting your injections or your immunizations and you pay for them, the ATO won't view them as a business expense. Any software subscriptions or necessary apps that you need to perform your job are deductible. And for many of you who do cleaning as well with their care, the cleaning equipment and products are also deductible if it's in the course of earning your income. And donations to charities, of course, as long as you have a receipt, because we do need to check if the charitable organisation is a deductible gift recipient. Equipment items, yes, they're deductible. I'm going to talk a little bit about them in a moment, about apportionment, education and training. So any of the courses that you do that have a direct nexus to your support work that you perform for your clients are 100% deductible, okay? Just remember that if you are studying and you haven't started earning income, so let's say you're doing a disability support course now and you haven't started with Mable and you haven't started earning income, unfortunately, it is not deductible. It's the study that you perform whilst you are earning your income is what is deductible. Now, a big one that we got is travel expenses. Let's say you travel overnight with your client, then yes. Travel also includes things like parking and tolls, public transport, flights and accommodation, and food for if you are away for 1 or more nights. So parking and tolls are given as travel. If you're parking and you pay for parking and tolls with a client in your vehicle, they are deductible. Any flights and accommodation are deductible if you are doing it for work purposes and earning your income, and you are paying for the accommodation, not the client. So it can't be claimable if you are not paying for the accommodation. And food if you're away from your home for 1 or more nights, okay? Working from home expenses, we'll talk about that. It's a very minimal claim for those of you who are support workers who are out in the community and also who are in client homes. But one of the big ones that I'm going to talk about is, let's talk about food, okay? It's a big question. Prescription glasses I saw come up. No, I'm sorry. Prescription glasses are treated as personal because they are for your, your personal wear. You could be wearing them at home in front of the TV or computer. They're not treated as a business expense. So can you claim? Yeah, so I just want to talk about food and drink. So we did have a question come through, and this is a common question across the board for many Mable independent support workers. I have a few clients who just want to go out to their cafe and have coffee, cake, and lunch. You cannot just sit there and not order anything. or bring your own biscuits. So you also get a coffee, a slice of whatever. The money adds up. Is there a possibility of claiming this in my tax? If not the food, at least the coffee. Sadly, they are not deductible regardless of the work type, whether you're an itinerant worker, and the ATO is pretty strict on this. Anyone who is an employee, anyone who has a company, if you go out for a company lunch, that's called a fringe benefit, and they pay fringe benefits tax on it. And so where you're thinking, I'm a business now and businesses have business lunches and things like that, I'm sure I could claim it. There are very specific rules. So in your line of work, we've been looking at it. There is only one area that if you can find an absolute direct nexus between the fact that you have to spend the food, then you can seek to the ATO for a private ruling. But if it's generally going to a cafe or taking them out for lunch, unfortunately, it is not deductible. And also for the client, let's say you pay for the client's food and you're not reimbursed, that is still not deductible because it is treated as a private expense, and it also is not an expense that the NDIS will cover. So remembering that you're looking after NDIS clients, you want to see what expenses are coverable under NDIS. And so the client will have to pay their own for their own food, and then yourself will have to pay for your own food. If the client chooses to buy you a coffee, then that is their choice. However, it's not deductible for either of you. So, which is very sad because it is an unintended consequence of expenses that independent support workers have. And it does add up, like you said. And so what it does is it does need to change the way you do business and get comfortable with the fact of saying, I'm okay, I'm not having a coffee this time, or I've got my bottle of water, I'm happy. Buying the coffee and the cake and ensuring that it's okay for you to do that and not know that it is claimable. Okay. But remembering, if you're traveling away for one or more nights, food and drink is deductible as a travel expense because you're not near your home. Okay. So I bet that's answered 90% of the questions on the call here. And yes, it is unfortunate. I see one here about a nurse who provides dressing materials. Absolutely. If you are buying those supplies and then using them on your clients, they're 100% deductible because and if I purchase a bike, unfortunately, bikes are really difficult to claim depreciation on. We know that we will look at motor vehicle, but you can't, put a client on a bike or something like that. So there would have to be a special ruling for you to be able to find whether you can claim a bike for those circumstances, or you would have to make sure that you have, if it's treated as an equipment item, you have to make sure that you document how much you use it for work versus personal. And then if you then had that documentation that this is used purely for work for this percentage of the time, then it might be the case because you can claim public transport, can claim motor vehicle. So we'll have to find some rulings that will support for a bike. Now let's talk about entertainment. Entry fees to events is the same as food. It's treated as entertainment in the eyes of the ATO. These rules have been long-standing. So if anyone previously have said, you will be able to find some sort of direct nexus. So let's say you've had to buy a movie ticket and you've had to buy 5 movie tickets to the same movie because you've had 5 clients go and see the same movie. They will view special circumstances. However, if you do have those companion cards or carers cards, you're going to get free access and or discounts to those entry fees and things like that. So make sure that you're looking for those that offer your access to be free, that offer companion cards, and try and find those movie theaters that accept that, because it is a bit difficult on that. There was one, I saw a question pop up about your laptop died. Absolutely. A laptop comes under equipment items that you need to use to, you know, do your business on, do your research, your study, do any of your bookkeeping. So that is deductible. So we're going to talk about that now when we're talking about apportionment. Okay, so let's say my laptop died and I need to use it for my Mable work. Okay, and so with that, but I also use it, you know, for personally. I check my personal emails. I do other study that is not work related. I let the kids use it. It's their only, you know, laptop in the house. Whatever it may be in your circumstances, you do need to account for a personal use portion. So examples of things that we apportion is a laptop, is an iPad, is a mobile phone, is things like a vacuum cleaner. If you purchased a vacuum cleaner that was specifically for cleaning a client's home and it was in the back of the car and you have a separate vacuum cleaner at home, then yes, it's 100%. But if you're using the same vacuum cleaner at your client's home as well as your home, then you need to apportion that. Okay. Now, the ATO has some substantiation methods for which you can account for these. So equipment items for computers, iPad, and office furniture, usually people go, oh, I estimate this much. In the eyes of the ATO, this is me just giving you the rules, and a lot of people do estimate. However, if you kept a 4-week log of the use of that item, then you are covered under the rules with the ATO. So how many times in 4 weeks did you use that laptop for work? How many times in 4 weeks, and how many hours did you use it for personal? Then we'll go, okay, well, it's 75% work, 25% for personal, or vice versa. Now, the very challenging one is a mobile phone. So what I want to talk about here is a caveat between working from home claim and a mobile phone. In most cases with Mable support workers, I will claim the mobile phone separately, and I will not claim a working from home claim. A working from home claim is 70 cents per hour that you work from home. And maybe some people are doing some invoicing or logging on their Mable app, maybe, 4 to 5 hours a week. But they use their mobile device to, go to their clients. They use their maps. They use their app on their phone. So they're going to be using their phone a lot more than they are going to be working from home. The working from home is an all-inclusive rate. So it's inclusive of electricity, internet, mobile phone, basic stationery, and cleaning. Okay. I don't recommend, if you are working from home, even up to 10 or 20 hours a week, I will not claim your electricity separately. It is not worth your time. We do charge more for a working from home, for an actual expenses claim. You just will not get the value that you think you might get from electricity. Okay. Internet is so challenging. If you want to do a work from home, an actual expenses for your internet, it is the same. You need a 4-week log every time you, your children, your family are on the internet for work or personal. And that is just a very taxing and very difficult thing to do. I've had to try and do it so I could teach people. However, I don't recommend it. But for a mobile phone, you can claim mobile phone where it's 10 cents for a text message or 75 cents for a call, but that is capped at $50. But with your mobile phone, if you have an itemized bill, and in your itemized bill, you can say what is work, what is personal. But then many people come and say, well, I use it for maps. I use it for the app. I'm using apps more. So it is a very difficult item to substantiate. So just do your best to work it out and say, okay, this many hours a week, I am using my phone. This many hours I am searching on, my Facebook or my Instagram or my TikTok or whatever it may be, making personal calls. And if you can track that for 4 weeks, that means you're definitely clear with the ATO. but it is challenging. So all I recommend is that you do your best, okay? As long as the ATO sees that you've made an effort to substantiate what is personal and what is work, then they're usually not that strict, okay? Education and training, we just want to make sure we've got a direct nexus to the study and the work that you're performing, and just have receipts. And all other purchases, we require receipts. Now, with the ATO these days, they're looking at people are using, there's these, cheeky little people out there that are creating receipts with AI. And they're using AI to create their receipts. And in that case, they might ask for bank evidence and not just a receipt. The rule used to be that bank evidence was not supportive. You had to have a receipt as well. We do look at bank evidence claims where fuel is concerned. However, the ATO can't see if you've, purchased a drink or, bread and milk on your way home, and they want to make sure that those personal items are taken out. That is why they request a real receipt. Okay. And like I said, when you're walking out to get your fuel and you are using the logbook method and you need those receipts, snapping a photo, putting it in like an ATO app or any kind of app that you may have, or keeping the photos, a digital photo of your receipts is always a good thing. Even if you collected your receipts and at the end of the week you took photos of them, letting you also know that we do not expect that you will send us every receipt of your fuel throughout the year. That is bookkeeping and not part of, and it's an extra tax service. So it is recommended that you keep those receipts. You need to substantiate them if the ATO comes knocking, and you can log all of those receipts in an Excel spreadsheet for us. We won't be going through every single receipt and plugging it into the system for you, just so you know. Now, I'm just going to check for some questions as we go through. Okay, so there's a bit of purchasing food and cooking at home with a client. Now, there's a bit of flexibility in the fact is, what is the purpose? So if it is that you have a client and you're making cookies in the afternoon with them, and that's one of the activities that you undertake together and it's part of your role, and let's say you purchased it, it's not going to be hard to claim them in limited circumstances, okay? So when you've got that in limited circumstances, or it could be just that, if you're there with your client and, that they had the cooking ingredients available for you guys to cook together, or they reimbursed you for that food, then that is fine as well. And if you wanted to, gift a bit of flour and sugar and egg and cook some cookies with them, then that's, not a bad thing. Now, the part about where do I get a carer's card, I'm really sorry. You'll have to Google that one yourself. I'm sure that Mable might know how to do that, or someone in the chat might have done this before. Okay, administrative timing examples, support notes, phone calls, and that to and from clients. This is where you're going to be, the time that you spend on it is not a value that you add. It is the expense of the phone calls. So yes, if you're making phone calls and all of that, if you were, there's not a charge out rate that you can give to that because you're not earning income at that time to offset that charge against. But you can claim the tools that you're using. So your mobile phone and making those calls, you can claim. Or there is the working from home rate. As I said, I believe in most cases, the mobile phone rate yields a higher return than the working from home, but speak to your advisor. You can't claim both, but speak to your advisor because your particular circumstances may be different to the common ones. And definitely first aid courses. Yeah, the mobile cap is, it's $50 per year at 10 cents a text message and 75 cents a call. It is not per month, okay? What is nexus? That's a good question. So when I say a direct nexus, so if you're doing a disability support course, through TAFE and you're paying for that and it's not free, and you are working for Mable and looking after disability clients, then that is a direct nexus to the income that you're earning to the study that you are doing. So an example is if you were doing disability support work, but you were at university studying to become a nurse or studying to become an engineer or a teacher, that is not directly related to the income that you are earning, then those university fees are not deductible, especially if you put them under HEX. So, okay, I do grocery shopping for my client and cook meals weekly. Is that tax deductible? Definitely not. Okay, so are you buying the food for your client, and are you then like the preparation of the food that you would be doing would be under your normal support hours that you would be charging them because you are performing a service for those clients. The grocery shopping, that would be under your support hours for the time that it takes you to do the grocery shopping. So that will be, but the cost of the groceries are definitely not claimable for yourself, as they're also not claimable under the NDIS scheme for the client. So any personal food and relation are not claimable for the client, and definitely not deductible for you as the carer. So, yep, I'm going to move on to the next part, which is motor vehicle. So all of those motor vehicle questions that you have, let's hope they are all going to be answered in this area session here. So what we're going to talk about is, we had a great question coming about at what part of the trip can I claim? And then we talk about a ruling like an itinerant worker. So if you've first heard this mentioned before, but pay attention, because this definitely relates to your industry as to what an itinerant worker is. When can I not claim for a motor vehicle trip? We're going to talk about the cents per kilometre method and the logbook method. We're going to go through some tips on both methods, and then we're going to talk about charging clients for the kilometres. Okay, so that's what we're going into next. So if you've got any questions in regards to that, then absolutely. So first, we're going to talk about what part of your trips are claimable. So here's a question that came from Catherine. I'm unclear on whether we can claim travel expenses from home to a client's residence. When I worked for an aged care organisation, I was told by my tax agent that I couldn't claim this. Since joining Mable, I've been to a different tax organisation and was told that I could claim this, as it's not a single workplace. The ATO website wasn't clear. Trust me, I've been in this industry for a long time. The ATO website is barely clear and concise. I hope you can sort this out. So Catherine, I really do hope I can answer this question for you and everybody else. When you are traveling from your home to a client and back home again, those claims are claimable. So track your kilometres going from home to the client, going out to the community, back to the client's home. And if you're going to a second client, you can claim the trip to the second client. If you go from the second client straight home, then you can claim that trip as well. So there is a ruling that was for employees that's called an itinerant worker, and we're using that rule because it actually stems across to ABN support workers and the way that you perform your job. Another work you can claim was getting supplies for your clients. So as someone said, I do the shopping for my client. If you are not shopping personally for yourself at the same time, you can claim the kilometres of going to this shopping centre, collecting all the groceries for the client as you are performing your job for that client. And I'm assuming you're getting paid for your support hours. And then when you go to the client's house, you can claim that as well. Okay, so even if you're shopping on your own and your client is not with you, I think usually in many cases people are shopping with their clients, but I'm not sure. It happens in various ways for this industry. So getting supplies and shopping and things like that for your client is claimable if it doesn't include personal errands. Traveling to meet new possible clients. that is also a claimable trip. Okay. So for yourselves, you have no fixed place of work. You are considered an itinerant worker and your travel is claimable. Now, I've had many other tax agents question me because there is a lot of misinformation out there, and I went to the ATO to get a particular ruling because we're talking to a vast number of you. So I can say pretty well with certainty, a client's home is not deemed to be a place of business or a place of work. It is your client's home. You may be working with your client or for your client, but your client's home is not, in the eyes of ATO, deemed to be a place of business or a place of work. So when you're traveling from home to your client and because you also have multiple different clients. So we're using the tax ruling of an itinerant worker where travel is fundamental to yourself as an ABM worker, especially those who you driving clients out in the community. You need to get your car from home to that client and out into the community. So it is a fundamental part of the income that you earn. Okay. If the client can't leave the home and you've got to travel to that client and you're traveling to multiple clients a week, then yes, the ABM worker or employee has no fixed place of work when you have multiple clients. You're continually traveling from one place to another, even if you see one client a day for, a certain number of hours, it still means you're traveling to different clients on different days or multiple clients on one day. And sometimes there's a degree of uncertainty as to your regular place of location. Some days you might be taking them into community, but the big thing that I got from the ATO is the client's home is not treated as a place of business or a place of work. So even if you're traveling by train, even if you're traveling by car, you can claim the trip. Okay. And so I hope that is understanding to everybody. If you have, put a yes in the channel, and hopefully that. Now, I've just spotted a question in the chat that was about disaster recovery payments as I was looking through the chat. I want to clarify something about disaster recovery payments. A disaster recovery payment that is related to you earning your business income or any income. So let's just say in Queensland, we had a cyclone earlier in February, March, and they actually shut down the schools and people weren't allowed to work and people were meant to stay at home, and the storm didn't, and the cyclone didn't come. It actually ended up not as bad as they expected, but the advice was given for them to not go out and work. Some businesses could claim a payment because they couldn't work for income. If it's a disaster recovery payment in relation to your business income or any changes in income, then yes, it is assessable for tax. If it's a disaster recovery payment because your home is damaged, and because they're giving payments to those, it's not a loss of income, it's damage to your area or your home, then that is private and personal and not deductible. So make sure when you're talking to your advisor about these payments that you are clear on what it is you receive the payment for. If it's to do with income, then it is taxable. If it's not to do with income, then it is not taxable. Okay. So now we talked about the itinerant worker and the place of business. Let's now move on to what you cannot claim. So when you're going to work and you're dropping the kids off at school on your way to a client. So unfortunately, that is not deductible. So think about, I talk to people and think about what is the intention of where you're going when you jump in the car. So if my intention is to drop my kids off at school, the intention when I jump in the car is personal. Once I've dropped them at school and I'm back in the car, the intention is business. I'm on my way to a client's home. So then you start your logbook as to when you are on your way to your client's home. Okay. If you were stopping for errands on your way home, you stop that claim. So, so let's say you're leaving a client and you want to stop at the shops on your way home. That's personal. You're traveling for personal. You're going to the supermarket to travel for personal or to pick up the kids on the way home. Okay. But then when it becomes not personal, like going to a client or going home from a client and going directly home, that is treated as business. Okay. If you are somebody who has employment work and also has ABN support worker work, then on that side of things, your regular place of work is a regular place of business. It is treated as a workplace. So going from home to your regular place of employment, that is a business office, or, you know, a aged care centre or what it may be, that is not claimable because you haven't begun to earn your income until you get there. And I know it's a bit tricky. You're not, you know, counting for the hours until you pick up the client in some cases. But in this case, if you're an employee and your employment job is your regular place of work, then that is not claimable. Okay. If you go out and you're buying business items and doing a regular family shop, the ATO is like, no, not even going to, you know, 50-50 it. Training or study that does not have a direct nexus to work, if you have to travel for that, no, it's not deductible. I also want to just go back to those who are employees as well, or do work in aged care system, or do work for an employer under the NDIS system. Now, your employer in this case is going to get you to travel to document your kilometers and pay you kilometers because that is what they're also on charging to a client, or that is what's under the award. Okay. If you are defining yourself as an itinerant worker, even though you're working in the aged care system or the disability service system as an employee, and you do not work in an office and you go to different clients every day, you can claim from home to work. Okay. So this is where I'm saying that not all tax agents are aware of the itinerant worker, and the company only needs you to log when you've got the client in the car because they need to pay you your kilometer allowance. Okay. And it forms part of their expense book. But there's a difference between what an employer needs and what the ATO needs for tax. So what the ATO needs for tax and what is your claim is what you're entitled to. It's very different. You're entitled to, as an itinerant worker, from home to the client, even if you're an employee or an ABN support worker, and you go to the client's home. So I hope that is very clear. And if you've got any questions around that justification. Yeah, I got lots of yeses, which is great. Yes, NDIS and aged care are they have same rules when we're coming to motor vehicle, okay? The itinerant worker rules are, if you work in aged care and you're working in an aged care centre, you're most likely going to be an employee for a start, and it is different. But if you're going aged care into people's homes and you haven't been provided with a car, you're using your own personal car, the same rules apply between NDIS and aged care. Now, this is the part where we go to about rego insurance. I see these questions coming through about odometer readings. Let's get right into it. There are two methods with the ATO that you can claim. One is a cents per kilometre method. Now, that is for those people who, may not do a lot of travel, or they may do a lot of travel and do not want to do the reporting. So you have two choices with the ATO, a cents per kilometre method or a logbook method. With the cents per kilometre method, you can claim up to 5,000 kilometres a year of actual travel. You have to have made the travel. It's not just, oh, there's a cap of 5,000. I want to claim the maximum. That's a myth. So if anyone's told you that you can just claim up to 5,000 kilometres a year without substantiating it or travelling those kilometres, that is actually false. So you still need to track your kilometers and you still need to substantiate your claim. So if you're traveling 5,000 kilometers a year, you're traveling like 100 kilometers a week. So you may find that easy to justify. The current rate for this year is 88 cents per kilometer. And so you'll see that there's a contrast between what you can claim under the cents per kilometer method and what you may be charging the client under the cents per kilometer method. Now, that 88 cents is an all-inclusive rate, a bit like the working from home rate, but it's an all-inclusive rate that accounts for fuel, registration, insurance, repairs and maintenance, car wash, interest, and depreciation of your vehicle. Now, in many cases, we've done logbooks for people where the cents per kilometer method is a higher outcome, and we use that rate. Okay. So in not all cases do you need to collect your fuel and that. 88 cents per kilometer if you've got a fuel economical car, if you've got a car that is, you know, not too expensive, and you're not doing a significant amount of travel, or you do a lot of personal, like, you know, got kids in sport or kids in school, or, you know, traveling a lot on weekends, then the cents per kilometer method is a good method for you. Under the logbook method, it's 2 steps. Now, there's always a myth that you only need to keep your records for 3 months, but there are 2 steps. The first step is to work out your apportionment. So that's a 12-week logbook to record your work and personal kilometers. This can be done through a mileage tracking app. It can be done on a physical logbook that you write down. So it depends if you're, you know, tech savvy or if you like the good old pen and paper. And there's also, you know, apps like Driver's Note out there are very good in these circumstances. Okay. Obviously, the cost of these apps to record this is deductible. However, so for 12 weeks is the minimum that you must do to do your 3-month apportionment. So you're going to track your personal kilometers and your work kilometers, and we're going to work out whether it's a 75% work use, 50% work use, maybe use it 80% for personal or 20% for work. That is what works out the apportionment of personal versus work. Then there's the step 2. If you are doing the logbook method, then you need to keep your receipts and expenses for the entire financial year. That's from 1 July 2025 to 30 June 2026. So that's fuel, registration, insurance, roadside assist, repairs and maintenance, new tires, car detailing. If you've got a loan lease agreement on your car, you can claim the interest. And also we need the car purchase invoice to claim depreciation. Okay. So that means, let's say all of those expenses come to like $7,000 in the year, and you're on a 66.33% claim, 63.33. Oh. That's about a 4,433 claim. Okay. So if you've got a 63% or lower and, you know, your expenses, so that comes to 4,433. Whereas just by tracking your kilometers and not keeping all the receipts, you can get a $4,400 claim. But let's say you've got a car that is super expensive and you've got $10,000 in expenses on the car or something like that, then the work use. I've got some tips here. Tips when using the logbook method. If you travel extensively for work, that's more than 100 kilometers a week, you might want to look at the logbook method, and you have limited personal travel. If your car is relatively new and is of the higher value amount, then it will provide a higher depreciation claim. As an ABN business, you've got to, if you purchase a vehicle under the logbook method and it's $20,000 or less, that is an immediate deduction under the business rules. If your vehicle is more than $20,000, we would put it in a small business pool, and you claim 15% of depreciation in the first year and 30% year after. So let's say you bought a $50,000 car and in the first year, let's say you bought a $50,000 car and it's 70% business. So that's $35,000. And then we put it in a small business pool. That's $5,250 just in depreciation on the vehicle. Okay. So this is where I just want you to understand, should I have a logbook or should I not have a logbook? Okay. Now, the minimum is 12 weeks. That's what the ATO expects. It doesn't mean that you just do 12 weeks. So for a lot of independent support workers who are just starting out, who only have a few clients now, and then end up with 7, 8, 9, or 10 later in the year, you want to keep that that logbook going, because if you're doing limited travel now and then your business grows, you're going to be doing more work travel. So the percentage is going to change, which gives you a better claim. So anyone starting out or looking to grow their Mable client base, then I suggest you keep going. Okay. Now, just remember, keep all receipts for the year, and any car modifications or disability access that you make changes to your car are also deductible. Now, this method is unique to you. It depends on how many clients you are, what your family circumstances are, what your income circumstances are, the value of the car. So make sure you have a conversation with your tax advisor on what the best is for you. If you haven't done the logbook method, you won't be able to claim the logbook method for your 2025 taxes. You'll have to get yourself prepared now for your 2026 taxes, okay? So if you haven't got a valid logbook and you haven't kept all your receipts, it's going to be very difficult for us to make a logbook claim in your 2025 tax return. For anyone who is looking to purchase a new car and for work, I strongly suggest you speak to an advisor about doing the logbook method, because you may get higher claims depending on the price of the car. Now, I just want to show something for those under the cents per kilometre method, and I'm running a little bit behind, but we do get every year people come to us and say, I didn't track my kilometres, I didn't do anything. Many of you might be familiar that this is an export. Trust me, I've changed all the data, the rates and everything, and the names have all been changed for privacy. But let's just say this is your CSV export and you're like, I didn't claim any kilometres in the year. How am I going to substantiate this? Then what you can do is export your support hours for the financial year. So this is going to be going from November 24 to, so it's got July 25 here. We're actually going to, for July, we do not need July because we are only going to the 30th of June. So we are going to delete those lines that are for July. Then there's this feature called the filter, where we can filter all of your, so if you highlight the top line, you can filter all of your clients. And then we've got Beth, Bill, and Charlie. So let's just say we'll look at Beth for now. And these are all the trips that you've done to Beth. And you're like, I didn't know that I could claim to the client. I didn't know that I could claim from the client, but I definitely traveled. Then you can sit here and go with your trusty Google Maps. You can go from your address to the client's address. And let's just say it's 6 kilometers. Okay. Now that doesn't need to be a dollar symbol. It just needs to be a number. Okay. And then we're going to go 6 kilometers back. However, if you've tracked your kilometers within the community, you can have a look at what you've tracked. If you've been charging them for kilometers, you can have a look at those community kilometers, and then you can add them together. But this is simple because for Beth, all you've got to do is copy the same amount all the way down for all the times that you saw Beth. And then we can add those kilometers up. And so we can do an auto sum. Now, if you don't know how to do this, you can just export it and let us know the kilometers, and we've got a team that can do it for you. Okay, so there's 786 kilometers, another 786 kilometers. and you can calculate community ones. There is another, you know, there's over 14, 15, 100 kilometers here. Okay. So then we can add them together, and that is your kilometer claim. So when we're doing 786 plus 786 total kilometers, under the cents per kilometer method, for all of that going to the client or from the client that you didn't claim, that's a $1,383 deduction. Now, remembering that an expense or a deduction is not a refund, even if you are in the 32% tax bracket, that's worth $442. So instead of saying, oh, I didn't track it, what do I do? You can then go back and do a bit of calculation. So you wanted to know where this is on the platform. So in the workbook, we've got, it's under exports. And I've got some, if anyone wants to take a screenshot of this page, this is where I can show you how you can export into Excel. Okay. But remember, you're only doing it for the financial year, for the years that you did travel. We'll get one of the girls to repost the link to the workbook as well. And so you're just adding the extra kilometers, the extra columns. Now, I won't answer any more questions now because I've just got one more section and we are a little bit over time, and I want to thank you for your patience. I need you to understand that when you're charging travel rates, we get a common question is saying, oh, I charge my kilometers, it's a reimbursement. In the case of your business, it is not a reimbursement. Your travel rates that you are charging to the client are treated as income. So you've got your support hours income and you've got your travel income, okay? When you export the annual statement, it's all included in the monthly income anyway. But I just want you to understand the concept that the travel rates that you charge to your client are treated as income. Please also collect those travel kilometers as well, whether it's under the logbook method or whether it's in the cents per kilometer method, because they will count towards your claim at the end of the year for that community kilometers. So you've got to, from, and the ones and the rates that you also charge, okay? Now, the rates that you charge out for travel rates, I think sometimes people are charging them out at $1, and then you've got the little fee that comes off with Mable. So, so that is going on as income. You notice that when I said it's 88 cents per kilometer, or you've got the logbook method, completely different way of treating the way we account for your expense. Okay, so understanding that is really good. Now, charging travel rates to the client. Here's an example. Say we had client one who was Bill. Bill, you did 15 kilometers and you charged at $1 per rate. So the travel fee was $1. Was $15. The support worker fee, so that's you, the independent support worker, the Mable fee is $1.50. So from that trip, you are receiving $13.50 of income, okay? And then what they have is there is the 7.95% fee that Mable charges. So the client is charged $16.19. The actual travel is $15, and you, the support worker, is getting $13.50. If you were to claim, so that's $13.50 of income. If you were using the ATO's cents per kilometer rate, the expense you can claim is $13.20. Okay, so that's very tricky and hard to understand. However, I just wanted to, if you walk away going, when I'm charging travel, it's income, and I'll go to my tax agent who will do my expenses under cents per kilometer or logbook, then you've got the understanding that you need. Okay. So I'll see if if anyone can send a message to Vaya to get the error for the workbook and why it is causing an error. She'll be able to give that to you, Chelsea or Cass. Now, finally, that's the end of all of the education and the information. And I want to thank those 198 people who stayed with me for that. So thank you, guys. Yes, you will be, this is being recorded. You will be able to access this. The workbook will be sent to you by Mable, will be accessible when you re-access the webinar on YouTube as well. So you're going to get access to these. We've provided it to the team. So we're YOUtax here. We've partnered with Mable to provide the Mable Tax Benefits Program. And these are the services that we offer. So obviously we've given you a lot of wonderful information. And if you've been able to grasp that information and walk away and prepare your taxes this tax time, that is wonderful. If you do need some help moving forward, we do have business starter packages, business packages, and GST packages. We did not talk about GST. If you do, if your income is above 75,000 or have GST concerns, I definitely recommend you get some advice. There's a few tricky little rules around there. However, we're here to help you for any services that you may need. And yeah, I want to thank you all for joining. So I'll just see.
Thank you, Emma, for your time. That was awesome.
My pleasure. Sorry I went a little bit over, but I think it was all good information that I think they might have.
Yeah, it was excellent. So many questions. So we'll be sending out the email tomorrow. I'll have a survey. It'll also have a link to the resources and the recording, and it'll also be on our YouTube channel. So you can all watch again if you need to.
Excellent.
Thanks, everyone.
If you can all provide some feedback, it'll help with the next webinar on how we can deliver that information to you. Thank you all.
Have a great evening. Bye, everyone.
Bye.